In this video, our goal is to classify the following numbers here as either rational and irrational numbers alongside a class of numbers that are not real numbers but rather called imaginary numbers. Take note that a combination of real numbers and imaginary numbers creates a form of a system of numbers that are known as complex number systems. First is, let's take a look at rational numbers. On our previous video, rational numbers are numbers that are in this particular format where a is an integer over another integer, and this here is where b is not equal to 0. Therefore, looking at this sea of numbers as shown right here, we recognize that 8 can be rewritten as a over b, where a is going to be equal to 8 and b is equal to 1. Therefore, 8 over 1 is a rational number, which places 8 indeed as a rational number. And so this here is also a real number, 8. So keep that in mind. Alongside another number here in this sea of numbers, which is -3 over 7. And this here is categorized as well as rational numbers. Now, the other part here is not looking at rational numbers, which are a part of real numbers, but irrational numbers. And the irrational numbers that we have here includes the following. We have anything that has continuous decimals, that for example pi, and even if we have pi or 2 pi, 3 pi, which is 3 times a continuous decimal number, this here highlights the fact that it is irrational number, alongside another number here which is called pi over 7, and this here is also known as an irrational number. Another type of irrational numbers that we see here reflects the square root of a square of a number. So the square of a number here, which in this case is 7, performing the square root of 8 gives you an irrational value. And take note that we have a negative sign that is associated with it outside of the square root of a number. Therefore, negative square root of 7 is an irrational number. And now the final part here is moving into imaginary numbers, and imaginary numbers have a format that resembles where you have the square root of a negative integer, and this here can be reflected based on what we have right over here, which is square root of -7. Another example here is seen right here to be square root of -11. And another one here is noticed at the numerator of this fraction here, which is going to affect the whole fraction. And in this part we have the square root of -5 over 2. Now we need to recognize that imaginary numbers can be found on a complex plane, which is a two-dimensional system where the horizontal axis is labeled as the real numbers while the y-axis is listed as imaginary numbers.